Well, hello there. We are back again to read some more of How to Eat Fried Worms, starting on chapter 11. If you have not read the previous chapters, you might want to go back and listen to the previous chapters because this book is called How to Eat Fried Worms, and you got to know why they're eating fried worms. Billy pushed the frying pan towards Tom. Okay, think. If it's not supposed to hurt you, well, then you eat a piece. Oh, no, said Alan. He and Joe were lying on their stomachs in the hayloft, watching. If he eats a piece, then you lose, Billy. The bet was you were going to eat 15 worms, not you and him together. Billy didn't look up. His eyes fixed grimly on Tom. All right, then I'll go dig another worm just for him. He's so big, telling me, hurry up, hurry up. I can't wait around all day. Don't be a sissy. All right. Now, but I didn't say sissy, said Tom uncomfortably. I just said if the first 4 worms didn't kill you, then this one's not going to either. I can't help it if my mother told me to be home by 2 today. I mean, she is going shopping, and so I have to watch after my brother. Yeah, said Billy. Okay, so we'll just have time for you to eat a worm before you go. Come on, where's the shovel? Well, right here, said Alan from the loft. We brung an extra worm today. A worm dangled, squirming from his fingers, and he dropped it down to Billy. But it's not cooked, said Tom. I'll do it, said Joe, scrambling down the ladder, and he took the worm from Billy and ran out. Then he ran back and grabbed the frying pan. Tom sat down on an overturned pail to wait. He didn't want to eat any worms. It wasn't his bet, and he glanced at the door creaking in the wind. Maybe he should make a break for it. Of course, he couldn't see Billy's point. Or he could see Billy's point. Billy didn't believe Joe's story, but still, he found it reassuring if Tom ate some too. He'll eat it, Billy was saying to Alan, and if he doesn't, well, then he's a chicken. After all this talk. Why don't I eat it, thought Tom. I mean, it's a yucky thing to do, but it's not going to kill me. He scratched his neck, shifting his seat on the bucket. I don't know, thought Tom. I just won't, I guess. And he gagged, imagining what it would be like to bite down on a soft, fat, boiled worm. He glanced at the door again, and then Billy kicked it shut. Leave it open, said Tom. Why? Because I said so. Well, you don't own this barn. Neither do you. Your father does. Billy rubbed his nose, watching Tom, figuring he's just trying to pick a fight so that he doesn't have to eat the worm. Okay. Billy opened the door and put a brick against it. Tom shifted his seat on the pail again, and he couldn't stop thinking about what it would be like to bite down on a soft, fat, boiled worm. Then he started scratching his ear. Who did Billy think he was anyways? Trying to order people around, telling them what they had to eat and all. Billy wasn't anybody's father. Tom began to feel put upon and indignant and stubborn, and then a screen door slammed. Joe was coming back with the worm. Tom licked his lips, and he heard Joe running across the barnyard toward them. Billy! Alan shouted. Billy spun around just in time to catch a glimpse of Tom pelting out the door and the door banging shut. He flung to the window. Joe sprawled in the middle of the barnyard on his back. Tom was clambering over the wall in the meadow. The frying pan lay upside down beside the horse trough. Chapter 12, the 5th worm. Look, said Billy to himself, staring down at the fried worm on the plate. Be sensible. How can it hurt me? I've eaten 4 of these already. Tom, he's just scared. He's like that sometimes. He eggs people on, but he never wants to do any of these things himself. Do you give up? Asked Alan. Come on, said Joe. We haven't got all day. 5 more minutes, said Alan, and then I win. There's no time limit, said Billy. And for the first time, he wondered, what would he do if he lost? Where would he ever get $50? But could he eat 10 more big, fat, ugly, soft brown things? He couldn't ask his father for $50. He heard Alan and Joe whispering together. He's gonna quit. Yeah, I knew he'd never make it when I bet him. He talks big. Him and Tom are just the same, but they never do anything. Billy gritted his teeth, and he glopped on the ketchup, mustard, salt, grated cheese, whatever was on the crate. Anything, everything. And then he grabbed up the worm, tore it apart with his fingers, and stuffed it right into his mouth, chewing and swallowing and gulping. And then, panting, he reached out and he wiped his gooey hands on Alan's trousers and grinned messily up at him. And he said, "There, 5. Chapter 13. Nothing to worry about. That night, Alan asked his father to show him $50. After that, he couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in his rumpled bed. Suppose he lost. He could just see himself asking his dad for $50, begging for it on his knees, with tears just streaming down his face, and then at Thanksgiving dinner, cringing when all of his aunts and uncles and cousins roared over his father's story of Alan's bet. He slid out of bed and snuck down the carpeted hall to his parents' bedroom. "You gotta wake him, Mrs. O'Hara. You gotta," he whispered into the phone. "It's an emergency. I gotta speak to him." "I got a hoarse throat, Mrs. O'Hara. That's why I'm whispering. Please." "Gee, thanks, Mrs. O'Hara. No, I won't ever call this late again. It's. He waited and he started gnawing at his thumbnail, and a board creaked on the stairs and he stiffened. Silence. "What do you want?" said Joe suddenly over the phone. "Jeez, I was sleeping and you done woke me up." "Joe, suppose I lose? My father'll never let me take the money out of my savings account. I just know he won't. Do you think I'll lose, Joe?" Huh? "Joe, tell me. Just give it to me straight, Joe. I gotta know. I can't sleep." Joe sighed. "Look, I told you this afternoon. You got nothing to worry about. He's cracking. Sure he ate that one today. Sure he might." Chapter 14. 4 blocks away, and Billy suddenly found himself on a brightly lit butcher shop, jostled by a crowd of enormous pigeon-breasted middle-aged women shouting to make himself heard over the din of their chatter and the roars of butchers ordering about the weasel-faced boys who were lugging haunches and tubs of meat in and out of the refrigerator room to the rear. Then a butcher saw Billy jumping among the women and asked for his order, and Billy gave it. And suddenly he was shoved up close to the chopping block, and the butcher slapped down 10 black... I forgot about this part. Whew. The butcher slapped down 10 black worms, as big as snakes. And Billy tried to say they were too big and that he'd choke on them. But the butcher couldn't hear him over the thumps of his cleaver and the din of the women and the hoarse shouts of the other butchers. And before Billy knew what was happening, he was seated at a table in Longchamp's restaurants in Times Square, New York, with a large napkin tied under his chin, and a waiter was uncovering a platter on which lay one of the huge black worms. Ugh! Coiled snakily, a red rose wobbling in the center of its coils. Ugh! "How can I ever finish it?" said Billy, and he cut into a mammoth coil. Steaming pink juice flooded out. Oh, this is so gross. Billy ate and ate and ate and ate, and then looked, and he must have eaten more than that. And he looked again, and there was no hole at all. He had eaten and eaten and eaten nothing at all. And then he felt something cold on his ankles, and he looked under the tablecloth, and there were 2 more huge worms round around and around and around his ankles. And then he felt something weighing down his arms, and he looked, And there was another worm round around his arm, glaring hungrily at him with its bloodshot eyes. Oh, this is so gross. And from everywhere in the vast room, winding between the tables, waiters approached carrying huge silver serving platters. And then Billy opened his eyes. You guys, I forgot that was a dream. I totally forgot about this part of the book. It is so crude to me. For the first moment in the moonlight flooding his bedroom, his 2 bare feet were sticking up out of the bottom of the covers, and he looked like 2 huge white worm heads. And then he realized that he had been dreaming, and he sank back into his pillow, the nightmare melting away. There were no huge worm as big as pythons. He was home in bed, and his parents were asleep in the next room. His tummy just started to rumble. What if Joe hadn't been lying? His hair stood up on the back of his neck. Or suppose Joe had made all that up, but had been right anyway, without knowing it. A shutter banged. Billy glanced at the window and saw the moon riding among the tossing leaves. His stomach rumbled and gurgled. He groaned. What if he was dying? He heard of people waking up in the middle of the night with pains in their stomachs, and then as the windows started turning gray in the dawn, they would die. Toadstools, soured lobster, tainted pork. That was a pain. He clutched his stomach and groaning, half fell, half staggered out of bed and hobbled toward the door, double bent over. There's got to be an antidote. He whimpered. It didn't hurt a lot, but nothing ever did to begin with, did it? First of all, I don't think I realized that this was made into a movie. So when I get done with this next chapter, I'll show you some of the pictures from it. And now you guys know when you're done with the book, you can actually look for the movie, How to Eat Fried Worms. I don't know where you're going to find it though. Chapter 15. His mother reached out and switched on the light. What kind of pain, Billy? And he stood beside the bed, clutching his stomach. In my stomach. Oh, there it goes again, I think. Did you eat something before bed? She was pulling on her bathrobe. John! This is at 3:15 in the morning. She shook her husband's shoulders and he mumbled, Did you eat candy or something before bed, Billy? Worms, groaned Billy. Worms? John! Billy, what kind of worms have you been eating? Regular worms. Night crawlers. She felt his forehead, lifted his chin to look in his face. You don't have a temperature. How many worms did you eat? 5. 2 boiled and 3 fried. With ketchup, mustard, horseradish, salt, pepper, butter. Just to make them taste better. Fried? Ketchup? Taste better? John! Wake up! I had this bet with Alan. Oh, he groaned. Take your hands away. Where does it hurt? Show me. I mean, it doesn't really hurt so much now. It's just rumbling and gurgling something awful. Well, then what are you groaning for? Asked his father. Because I was afraid it's going to start hurting. Do you think I'm going to die, Daddy? Worms, his father asked. Like ordinary worms? Earthworms? Billy nodded. And how many did you eat this evening? Well, 1 this afternoon. I've eaten 1 every day for the last 5 days, but they weren't little ones. I mean, they're night crawlers, huge ones, as big as snakes almost. His father lay back down and pulled the covers up around his shoulders. Don't worry. Eating 1 night crawler a day for 6 weeks wouldn't hurt you. Go back to bed. It's probably all the ketchup and mustard that's upsetting your stomach. Drink a glass of warm water. John, are you sure? Asked Billy's mother. It doesn't seem to me that worms could be a very healthy thing to eat. John? His father snuggled deeper down into the covers. I didn't say eating worms would turn him into an all-American fullback. I just said they wouldn't hurt him. Now let's go back to sleep. Billy's mother glanced at Billy, shivering beside the bed in bare feet and pajamas, and then shook her husband again. John, dear, wake up. I think you should call Dr. McGrath. You don't really know whether or not eating worms is harmful. I know you don't. Billy's father groaned and sat up. Now look, I'm not going to call Dr. McGrath at 3:30 in the morning to ask if it's all right for my son to eat worms. That's flat. Secondly, I do know that Billy's not going to die before morning. If worms were poisonous, which they're not, he would have been laid up before this. Billy, you've been eating worms for 5 days? Billy nodded. All right. And thirdly, I ate a live crayfish when I was in college and have suffered no discernible ill effects. And fourthly, I am going to sleep. Billy's mother slipped her feet into her slippers, stood up and buttoned her bathrobe, and then leaned over the bed and shook her husband's shoulders. John, dear, I will not be able to sleep until you call. John, oh, John, what about tapeworms or fungus? John, wake up. Billy, you go back to bed. Your father will call Dr. McGrath. John, dear. Billy lay in his bed listening to his mother and his father arguing in their bedroom. He could only make out a word here or there, usually when his father started to shout, only to be shushed immediately by his mother. Billy got sleepier and sleepier, and his stomach had stopped rumbling and gurgling. It was just warm and cozy under the covers after standing on the cold floor in his bare feet. Then, in the midst of a foggy drowse, he heard someone dialing the phone in the hall outside his parents' bedroom, and then his father say, poison control, and explain the case. And then there was silence. Billy heard the water running in the bathroom, and then his father said, you're sure? These weren't little ones. These were night crawlers. And no long-range ill effects. I think. And the next thing Billy knew, sunlight was streaming through his window, and Emily was skipping down the hall past his door singing, half a pound of tuppenny rice, half a pound of treacle, that's the way the money goes. His father shouted down the stairs, Helen, do you know where my green tie with the red stripes is? I'll show you some pictures, and that is the end of the chapter. It says Billy in the top picture, and the kid down below is labeled as the bully. Oh, it's hard to see what I'm doing here. Trouble. And the deal is made. Billy and Adam up top. And then Twitch and Technomouth down below. I don't even know who they are. These are a bunch of kids in this book that I don't even know who they are. It's kind of funny to me. Oh, they were looking for recipes for worms, and then that, I think, was the first worm he consumed. Ew, you guys, these are some horrible, horrible pictures. Seems like the movie is a little bit different than the book. If you end up watching the movie, definitely going to have to let me know how different it is than the book. All right, that's all for today, my friends. Talk to you soon.